Board of County Commissioners acts as a quasi-judicial body when it hears requests for rezoning and conditional use permits. Applicants must provide competent, substantial evidence establishing facts or expert witness opinion testimony showing that the request meets the zoning code and comprehensive plan criteria. Opponents must also testify as to facts or provide expert testimony whether they like or dislike a request is not competent evidence. The board must then decide whether the evidence demonstrates consistency and compatibility with the comprehensive plan and the existing rules in the zoning ordinance, property adjacent to the property to be rezoned, and the actual development of the surrounding area. The board cannot consider speculation, non-expert opinion testimony, or poll the audience by asking those in favor or opposed to stand up or raise their hands. If a commissioner has had communications regarding a rezoning or conditional use permit request before the board, the commissioner must disclose the subject of the communication and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place before the board takes action on the request. Likewise, if a commissioner has made a site visit, inspection, or investigation, the commissioner must disclose that fact before the board takes action on the request. Each applicant is allowed a total of 15 minutes to present their request, unless time is extended by majority vote of the board. The applicant may reserve any portion of the 15 minutes for rebuttal. Other speakers are allowed 5 minutes to speak. Speakers may not pass their time to someone else in order to give that person more time to speak.
Good evening and welcome to the February 6th Planning and Zoning meeting for the Board of County Commissioners. We have a quorum. I'll call the meeting to order. Invocation this evening is by Donnie Legg from Second Adam Ministries. Sir, you're recognized for invocation.
Let's pray. Father, we're so humbled again just to be able to come before your throne. We recognize you as the God you are. You are holy. You are just. You are a sovereign God that is in control. Father, I'm thankful that you have demonstrated your love to us in so many ways. And Father, yet I'm thankful for a government of councilmen and women that desire a prayer before the meetings like this are held, that the only way we can have the true wisdom to be led in the way that is right is to go through you. So may your Spirit lead this meeting tonight as only you can. May you give our councilmen and women the wisdom, Father, with the responsibility of decision making for so many in this county. I'm thankful for them. May we continually pray for them individually, not just for them, but their families as well. And so, Father, we're grateful for who you have appointed as our leaders in this county. I pray for the people behind me, Father, that they are all here with an agenda. May we conduct ourselves, Father, in a way that we know that your Spirit is present in this room. And so, Father, we'll give you the praise for the outcome. Again, Father, we're grateful for those who are behind the scenes to make a meeting like this possible. Father, people that don't even know who they are who make this happen. So we lift them up to you and their families as well. So, Father, have your will and way in this meeting tonight, and we'll thank you for the outcome. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Commissioner Adkinson for the pledge. Okay, Commissioner Altman's going to be a little bit late. I think he got stuck in traffic. I don't think he'll miss the main event, though. So we don't have any minutes for approval. We don't have any resolutions or consent agenda. And we don't have any cards for public comment. Is that right? Yes? Okay. All right. We will go to H1.
H1 and H2 are companion applications. I will read them into the record together. However, they will need a separate decision. RHR Construction and Development LLC requests a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment under 24.012 to change the future land use designation from PI to Res 4 under application number 24SS00012 in District 1. RHR Construction and Development LLC requests a change of zoning classification from GU and RU-1-11 to RU-1-11 under application number 24Z00042 located in District 1.
Okay. Robert, is it Robinson? Okay. Sir, you're recognized to explain your item.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for seeing me tonight. My name is Trey Robinson, Robert Robinson. I represent RHR Construction on the matter of 3970 Curtis Boulevard. Today I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the lot, why I'm doing what I'm doing, our plans for it, and then its justification. To begin, 3970 Curtis Boulevard, it currently exists as a 1.1 acre lot in Cocoa, Florida. This lot is very peculiar as it's considered one lot, yet it's divided into two separate tracts, Tract 1 and Tract 2, each with their own future land use and each with their own zoning classification. Tract 1 is on the left side of the lot. It is a future land use listed as planned industrial with a zoning classification of RU-111. And Tract 2 is on the right side of the lot and has a future land use listed as planned industrial with a zoning classification of general use. In addition to the tracts being divided by a tract divider line, they're also divided by a 40-foot drainage ditch easement, which runs down the middle and then along the back of the lot. The desire is that the future land use requested to be changed from planned industrial to Res 4 for both tracts. In addition to the future land change request, I am also requesting the zoning be altered slightly. The current zoning of the Tract 1 is RU-111, like I said. I'm desiring to keep the zoning the same for Tract 1. The current zoning of Tract 2, however, is general use, and this is the tract I'm seeking to change to RU-111. The requested future land use of Res 4 will match the surrounding area as well as the rest of the neighborhood, and the future land use will also match the surrounding neighborhood. That's all I'm doing, is trying to make these lots able to be built upon one house to however it's going to be, but just to match the neighborhood. We're not going up in density or down. But, that's all we're seeking to do.
All right. Hold on a second there, sir.
Sure.
Commissioner Delaney.
Would you mind explaining to me, what you guys are doing there, what you're wanting to do, what's the reason for the change, what kind of is your plan?
Sure. So the lot, like I said, it has two separate zoning classifications and future land uses. In order to build a house, you have to have the same zoning and same future land use for the lot. Otherwise, you can't build a house there. So that's all we're trying to do, make it able to be built upon.
So am I understanding this correct, that you guys are trying to build two houses on there?
That will be probably the end goal, probably.
Right.
But currently, this is the first step in getting there, is just getting this zoning changed regardless of one lot or two lots.
And are these personal houses of people? Are you representing the person? Are you the landowner? Or
sorry, excuse me. I'm a developer,
right,
and we're just developing houses. It'll probably be spec homes to sell around the neighborhood, but
okay,
it will match the rest of the neighborhood, the same zoning classification, same future land use. So nothing grander, or, changing densities like that.
Right.
We're actually coming down.
Right.
So that's
okay.
our aim. Mm-hmm.
Commissioners, any other questions for the applicant? Okay. We don't have any other cards. Is there any discussion on the item? Commissioner Delaney?
I have some concerns about this this project, mostly because of the wetlands and because of the drainage ditch that goes through it. And if you look at the maps, this lot is extremely important for the drainage in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really concerned about, if it's messed with, what is it going to do to the rest of the area? Is it going to impact the rest of the area?
So we actually had an environmental study performed on the property before we even bought it, and the wetlands are confined to the ditch themselves. The only wetlands per se up on the highlands, the buildable land, is pepper trees, and that's probably because when they were excavating the drainage ditch, they just piled the spoils on there, and so it's just growing pepper trees. But if we were to build on the lots, actually the lots would become higher theoretically, and the ditch would actually be deeper So if anything, it would actually improve the function of the ditch itself.
Is
Make it
that
even
what
more-
the study shows?
What's that, I'm sorry?
Is that what the study shows?
The environmental study,
Yeah,
that the ditch will be improved?
right.
Well, the study was just for wetlands, right? To
Okay.
determine if there's any flora or fauna. There's no gopher turtles, scrub jays, anything like that. There's no protected wetlands within the buildable area of the lot, just to the ditch and the banks itself, which will not be altered. Because there's a ditch easement that you can't, impact at all.
Mhm.
And that's not what we would do.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Any other discussion? Is that a question that you want to ask staff potentially? Okay. This is your district.
Would you guys be amenable to a BDP that would, could you commit to doing an engineering study to show how this will not adversely affect the drainage of the surrounding streets?
Sure, if needed to.
Okay.
Mhm.
With that, I'm okay with this.
Okay, for the purpose of the clerk, and Billy, maybe you could help us here so that she could read the motion again to include that BDP.
Yeah, given that the first motion would be the land use, the BDP would be the second motion with the zoning.
Okay, so let's do the first one, okay? So what do you want to do on the first one?
I'll make a motion to approve the
Okay.
land use
We have a
change.
motion to approve by Commissioner Delaney. Is there a second? There's a second by Commissioner Atkinson. The clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Delaney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Goodson. Yes. Adkinson. Yes. Commissioner Altman, Chair Feltner.
Yes. Commissioners will show that one adopted. We'll go, so for H2, we need a separate motion. That one's going to include the BDP. Billy, you want to help with that? Potentially.
Yeah, my understanding is the motion would be to approve the request from GU and RU 111 to RU 111 with the BDP as outlined by Commissioner Delaney.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Delaney. Is there a second? We have a second by Commissioner Atkinson. Clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Delaney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Goodson.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkinson.
Yes.
Chair Feltner.
Yes. Congratulations, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go on to H3.
Wanda and Dennis Crocker, represented by Timothy Vulpius, request a change in zoning classification from AU to RR1 under application number 24Z00059, located in District 1.
You're Timothy.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I appreciate you hearing me out today. I'm just trying to rezone this property from AU to RR1 to make it buildable, residential.
Put a single-family residence on it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Are there questions for the applicant? No questions? You're the only card that we have. Is there any discussion on the item? No. Commissioner Delaney, this is your district.
I'd like to move to approve this item.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Delaney. Is there a second? Second. We have a second by Commissioner Atkinson. Clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Delaney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Goodson. Yes. Commissioner Atkinson. Yes. Chair Feltner.
Yes. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you
We'll
very
show that
much.
Adopted. All right. H4.
Luz Nogueroles requests a change of zoning classification from AU to RR1 under application 24Z00060, located in District 2.
I think the applicant's here. Yes? Luz. You recognize me.
Good afternoon, members of the commission. Thank you very much for hearing me here today. My name is Luz Nogueroles, 1455 Martin Road, Rockledge, Florida, 32955. We are requesting to change the zoning from AU to RR1 for 1 acre of a 5-acre lot. The purpose of this is to be able to continue the agricultural portion of the rest of the lot and separate there's a single-family home on the RR1, and that's pretty much what our request is. Thank you. Sorry, I'm just a little nervous.
You're doing fine. Commissioner Goodson?
Yes.
Sir.
How long have you owned the property?
Almost 2 years.
Okay. And when you bought it, you realized that it was one home for 2.5 acres, right? That's what's zoned on either side of you, correct?
Well, there's 5-acre lots next
Yeah,
to
but
me as
one
well.
home per 2.5 acres. And what you want to take out is in a severe wetland or a floodplain, correct?
Oh, I didn't know that was a floodplain or
Okay, let me ask. Billy, the portion she wants to take out and put in the flag lot, is that in a floodplain?
Yes, sir.
What does that require her to do to build on?
So in the 1 acre portion, the home is already there, but on the remaining portion, Natural Resources is here to discuss further, but depending on what the elevations show, there's density restrictions associated with whether it's in the 10-year, 25-year, or 100-year floodplain.
Okay, let me refer to Department of Natural Resources. What is it in?
We can't determine that until we get topography of the site and then compare it against the St. John's Water Management District technical report. So it takes some research to figure out what those floodplains actually are, which year they're in.
If you know anything about the site in Martin Road, it's definitely floods, correct? I mean, we have a problem with that, all of that area.
I'm not really familiar with what the site conditions are out there, but you probably know that area better than I.
Let me refer to Ted. Ted, do you know the area?
I'm somewhat familiar with the area, and I do believe there's been some flooding out there. It's pretty low in that area.
Yeah. Now, do you plan on, I guess if you get this zoning, you plan on building on it, right?
No, there's already the RR1, the area.
Why are you asking for a zoning change if you're not going to build on it?
Because I want to separate the two lots. The one is going to be a flag lot, which is the 4-acre lot, and then the RR1 is going to be the lot that currently has the house on it.
But if you're going to own it, what is the purpose to separate it?
Well, there's other lots in the area that have also done that, and it's also for purposes of homestead, that to separate the agricultural portion of the lot from the house, so I can get my homestead of that particular property. Here, there's less than 1,000 feet away, there is a lot here that is zoned RR1, so it's not like I'm asking for something that doesn't already exist within the vicinity of the lot. My intention is not to add additional structures to it. We have also come here and asked for variances. There's a barn on the flag lot, and the variances have already been approved to once the flag lot takes place. And if this is approved tonight, then the barn itself would have within the correct setbacks.
But you want to go from agriculture to RR1?
Just on the house.
Is the house not already zoned RR1?
No.
No, so the full parcel is zoned AU. This is the request for the 1 acre with a house on it to go to R1.
Which would increase their taxes.
There may be some tax consequences with a homestead on the other 4.5.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And if I may, Commissioner,
sure.
Just a note, administrative policy number 7 does allow the board to consider that the proposed use shall not cause or substantially aggravate any substantial drainage problem on surrounding properties or significant adverse and unmitigable impact on natural wetlands, water bodies, or habitat for listed species. So you can consider that as part of your request.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Just as a point of clarity, I think you can have homestead on agricultural. So, I mean, if you have an orange grove and you have a house in the middle of it, I think the property appraiser says, okay, well, that's not, the agricultural portion of that where the house is. All the rest of it, including even a pole barn, all those kinds of things are included for the purpose of an agriculture classification. And that's a different thing. That's a tax question. Does that sound? Am I right? It's been a while since I worked there, but.
Yes, sir.
And Debbie left already. She'll think that's funny. Okay, so just to clarify for the board here, you're not planning to sell that to somebody else
No.
who then is going to build a house on it.
No, it's
You're-
it's everything
you're-
within my own family.
You're,
that
you're
we're-
doing this for the purpose of establishing, you don't have homestead on your property now?
Not yet.
Okay. Is that something that the property appraiser told you that you needed to do?
Well, they said that it would be better if the property would be separate, and then I'm also looking at here, this RR1 is a lot that is taking homestead, and the rest of the area is also owned by the same family, which is not taking homestead, and it is agricultural. So I'm basing that also on that information that I have.
Okay. Commissioner, is that, okay. Sir.
But what
But
we're
no,
fixing.
as of right now, there is no future plan either to build on anything or further split the lot or anything like that.
Of course, we're changing what's been zoned down there for 30, 40 years, or for a long time, so I just can't support this.
I'm not sure for the purpose of homestead that we have to do this, but Commissioner, just talking it through, is something like a BDP where, they're not putting another structure on that property, does that help satisfy this situation?
Ask them.
I would be willing to accept that.
Is that?
Now, the
Sir.
BDP would,
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if that would really operate, because the rezoning request is to the 1 acre portion. So the BDP, it sounds like, would be concerning the remaining 4 acres that aren't the subject of this request.
so
Which-
that's all.
Thanks for that clarification.
But
Okay.
regardless, even if it's at a RR1, I'm only allowed to have one structure on there, on the RR1 zoning. So, I mean, that's already on the property, so I'm not intending to put anything else in there.
So-
Maybe a pool
so
down the
just back-
future, but nothing else.
Yeah, just back to where we are, the RR1 is just for the portion that the house is on,
Yes.
Right. Sorry, Commissioner, I didn't catch the question.
That's okay. The RR1 request is just for the portion that the house is on.
Yes,
That
Commissioner.
doesn't speak to what's going to happen to
Correct.
and whether it's split in the future or any of those kinds of things. That's
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's just
Right.
the 1 acre that's on the northeast portion.
Commissioner Goodson.
The properties haven't been divided yet, correct?
Right.
Correct.
Okay. I think we could probably because the request, even though it's rezoning a portion of the property, it is a rezoning related to the entirety of the property, although it's just a portion. So I think we could probably structure a BDP in a way that could restrict development of another residence on the remainder, or on the entirety of it, really. But because what we'll have after the rezoning action is still one property, just with 4 acres zoned agricultural and one zoned RR1, correct? So I think there's a way we can make it work.
And the 4 acres, I'm sorry to interrupt, also has the barn and a stable already on there, so just wanted to
Understood.
make sure that we know that.
And I would agree with what the commissioner said. I don't think that you need to do this if the only purpose is for purposes of establishing a homestead through property appraiser. But if this is what she wants to do, I think you can mitigate that with a binding development plan if that's the board's desire.
I have no issue with that as long as, I assume somebody's going to bring it back to the board. We're not going to vote on it tonight because I'd like to see it prior to voting on it.
Well, you'd vote on the zoning tonight subject to the binding development
Right.
plan, and the binding development plan will come back to you.
Right. Now, is that okay with you, Billy?
Mr. Richardson, if he thinks he can make that work. My only concern is that the legal advertisement. I haven't checked it, but I would assume that it was only the 1 acre. So
I understand, and you're probably correct there. Again, we're flying by the seat of our pants a little here because it's just coming up now, but I do feel pretty confident that we can do it through a binding development plan.
understood.
Okay.
Commissioner?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we could restate that for Commissioner Goodson for his motion, though. That includes that.
Yeah, Billy.
So my understanding would be to approve the rezoning request from AU to RR1 with the BDP, limiting development on the entire 5 acre parcel to 1 residential unit.
Which is already there.
which is already present.
Right. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
That's fine,
Okay.
Chair.
We have a motion by Commissioner Goodson. We have a second by Commissioner Atkinson. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Nope.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Atkinson. Clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Delaney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Goodson.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkinson.
Yes.
Chair Feltner.
Yes. Congratulations, ma'am.
If I
Thank
could
you.
just say one thing,
yep.
I'm sorry. I know this isn't my district, but I know this area very well. I pretty much grew up on that street, and so, yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll go to H5.
Tiffany and Henry Lequear request to change the zoning classification from RR1 to AGR under application number 24Z00058, located in District 3.
What's that? I'm sorry, we had two cards on H4 that we didn't call yet, and I apologize for that. That's my mistake. Morris, what should we have them come up and talk?
We
and
should,
can-
if there are
yep,
cards,
okay.
then we should have them come up.
Yeah,
And then
I'm
if
sorry.
the applicant is still here, she should probably stay around for a minute.
Okay, stay around, ma'am, just for a second. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Okay, let's do the cards real quick. Alice Deakins, is that right? I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. I was just confused on how it worked.
I didn't have my glasses on there
That's
for a
okay.
minute.
Thank you for hearing us out. I appreciate it.
Yep.
So I guess I'm just still a little bit confused because if it's rezoning for homestead, anyway, sorry, 1469 Martin Road, I'm a resident. Glad to have you. I guess I'm confused. I'm not sure what got approved because I don't really know the terminology. But if it's rezoning for homestead and that doesn't play a part, I don't understand, I guess, why we were going that route. I guess, and to explain, it's all about the integrity of that property. I got extremely lucky almost 10 years ago, able to get that property, extremely. And we're blessed to be out there. It's rural, it's horse country. We want to keep it that way. That's what we're looking for. Every time something gets built, every time there's a change on Martin Road, it is extreme flooding there. The property that was talked about is the buyer's property, and they are here today. And I think they're going to speak also. That splitting of the lot was over 40 years ago when they purchased it. It's one family that purchased it, and it's one family still there. So that was done, but it was done like 40 years ago, and they haven't messed up that integrity at all because it's still that one family owned. So I guess I'm the one, and I know with other neighbors, that approved the barn not having to be moved, and those those lines, however you say it, because I'm right next door. So it's me that approved that the barn didn't have to be moved the first time nor the second time, because I have no issues. They're great people. I think they're going to be great neighbors. They haven't moved in yet, but I think they're going to be great neighbors. I have no issues with the structures that are already there, and I would never in a million years want them to move them and make it, a heartache for them. But I think it just kind of draws the line here because it makes me nervous because why are we doing this? Why are we splitting it? If it's just for homestead, if it doesn't make a difference, then why are we going that route? That's where I'm confused about.
I think we were trying to figure that out too. And so what Commissioner Goodson imposed is that there's not going to be another residence on the other portion of that property. So that's going to continue to be some agricultural use, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. So that BDP will follow even after the
Yeah.
lot split, so they will.
So I think she had said there's no plans right now to do anything, which doesn't negate the fact if there would be future plans, but I guess in this, then you're saying that nothing else could be built on those. And then I guess we're back to why are we doing this to begin with, because it sets precedents.
Well, no, I could see that's possibly cleaner for the purpose of homestead
Okay.
for the property appraiser.
Okay.
I did work there for a while,
Sure.
and I could see that they would do that because they typically do carve out where the house would be. They say, okay, that's the residence, and you have homestead on that portion. The rest of it is agriculture, and if it's an agricultural use, it's actually a bona fide commercial growing operation, not a hobby farm. Then you get that classification on the rest of it. So for the future, though, they're not going to be able to put another residence on there, even if they split it and someone else were to buy it. So if that were to happen in the future, I think someone else would have to essentially do agriculture on that. Does that sound right?
Yes, it would have to be something non-residential consistent with agricultural zoning.
So I guess my first question is, I thought for the ag, that it had to be 5 acres to get that tax ag. Am I wrong?
And I don't know that might have been a rule. I don't know if that's a hard, fast rule. That's really a question for the property appraiser.
And then I guess, and then I'll let you go. Because then if they decide to sell it, which they could easily sell it, then again, we're deteriorating the atmosphere of a rural with just, there's, very few families out there at this point, and we're not looking for a busy street. We're not looking for multifamily houses. There's 2 10-acre lots that are for sale that, we're dreading, God forbid, but they're being, the owners are steadfast that they're selling to certain people. They're not looking for a subdivision to come in, so we're just trying to keep that integrity.
I think your commissioner just basically put a deed restriction on there to try to protect you. Does that sound right, fair, sir?
It's no different than a rezoning, so it follows the zoning unless or until the board amends the BDP, it'll be on that property, it follows the property.
So I'm sorry, I might not have understood you. We'd be back at this again if somebody challenged it?
So a new owner could come and try that, but you probably have a commissioner who would want to do the same things.
Okay,
but
thank
that
you.
could also happen if this isn't approved and somebody buys the lot in the future. So.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you.
I apologize again. John Angelo? Angelo, okay.
Good evening. My name is John Angelillo. I live at 1475 Martin Road. I've lived out there for almost 40 years, and I guess the biggest concern we have with this is not what they're doing, is anything that's going to set a precedence where the lots on the north side of me, the 2 10-acre parcels that were sold, that they wanted to come in and start a subdivision. And I guess that's the biggest concern. We don't want to disrupt that area out there. It's nice, it's quiet, and like Ms. Deacon said, we are being flooded out there quite often. I mean, the county's well aware of what the situation is. They've done studies, they're doing surveys, and when they put Phillips Landing in, they put it 3 foot higher than my property, and my whole driveway is disintegrated because of the water. So I guess what Mr. Goodson was talking about was if that's the case that, they have to come back and try to get it rezoned, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But it's just my concern was setting a precedent, and I know how that works.
Chair.
Commissioner Goodson.
John, I must correct you now. Phillips Landing is Rockledge. They're the ones that raised it 3 feet. The county
Well, I know,
did.
but the county had approved drainage.
Anybody knows the drainage there, John.
They don't. I do. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Commissioner Delaney, hold on, sir. We have a question for you.
Sir, John, I just wanted to say something. So that area, which I remember very well, Circle C Ranch, if I'm remembering correctly, the 2 lots, the 2 10-acre lots.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it would be irresponsible for us to put subdivisions on those properties. And so I can't imagine that happening. I don't foresee ever voting on something like that. So I totally understand your concern, and but I can't imagine that happening. But those properties back there, I know they flood like crazy.
Yeah.
So, but like Commissioner Feltner and Commissioner Goodson were saying, that this can't be built on unless it comes forward to a future board, and we have to go through all this again. So
Okay. Well,
that's to give you a little peace.
That's the biggest concern.
For sure.
I don't care. I mean, they could build a mansion over there on their property or whatever they want to build, but I was just concerned about rezoning and setting a precedence where all of a sudden, bang, here we go again, in mushrooms. So, but thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Appreciate everybody's forbearance.
So,
Just
Mr.
we're
Chair,
clean. Yep.
yeah,
Shall
I
we
think
vote
the
again?
first vote was taken in error, so you need
Okay.
the motion again and a vote, please.
Okay. So maybe we should restate the motion real quick, Billy. We'll vote again.
The motion was to approve the rezoning request from AU to RR1 with a BDP across the parent parcel of 5 acres, limiting a residential density to 1 unit.
Commissioner Goodson, that's your motion, sir?
That's fine.
Okay,
I
so
so move.
we have a motion by Commissioner Goodson. We have a second by Commissioner Atkinson. Clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Delaney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Goodson,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkinson,
Yes.
Chair Feltner.
Yes. And we'll show that passes. Okay, congratulations again, ma'am, for a second time. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. H5.
Tiffany and Henry Lequear request to change the zoning classification from RR1 to AGR under application 24Z00058, located in
Is Henry here? I think I have a card. Sir?
Thank you.
Thank you. You're recognized.
Hmm?
You're recognized to explain your issue.
I just want to rezone it to AGR for short term to be able to put a pole barn up, because legally I can't even put one up with it being RR1. And then the longer term is to do a deer farm. Something I can do on small property and can be quite lucrative.
Better than the fish business. Is that right?
You know, my mom tries to keep up with all
Okay.
that, but it's a lot of work for her nowadays.
I understand. Okay, are there questions for the applicant? Commissioner Atkinson.
So, changing things to ag, I have a question. The one thing that ag says that just makes me a tiny bit nervous is it says agricultural pursuits, including the packing and processing of commodities raised on the premises. So if we're doing deer, what does that look like?
Like, you know, livestock, I mean, it's just going to be, you know, multiple thousand square foot holding pens for them, and in and out with a trailer and just the barn to keep up with them.
Right.
So no, like, big packing facility or anything crazy.
No deer processing
No.
type deal?
They'll all be, if they do leave there, they're leaving alive.
Okay. So then I have a question for staff, and I'm not exactly sure who it would go to, but just in general, is this piece of property big enough that if we did switch it to ag, we could do something like a packing or processing structure or plant or whatever we would call it?
It seems unlikely from a practical perspective, given the size of the property.
Mhm.
I couldn't say it could never be done, but it seems a little impractical.
Could I ask a follow-up to that, maybe to clarify? That would then turn into something commercial, and when that need probably additional,
This
I
is
mean, if you're
commercial.
putting a plant,
This is commercial.
Well, like the commissioner did point out, you are able to do on this property agricultural pursuits, including the packing and processing plant. That is possible on an agricultural
I
zoning.
mean, I plan on building out there a house at
Right.
some point, so I promise you none of that's
I mean, we were talking about selling the genetics of the deer,
the
right?
genetics.
So
I mean, you
it's
sell the
commercial.
deer,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So I would also just like to point out, if I may, that the current zoning, which is RR1, is actually not consistent with everything around it. So,
Well, my father back in 2007,
yeah,
he went through, I don't know if he had a big plan to sell the 5-acre lots
Right.
and do that, but
so this would actually bring it into line with
with what's
the
around
other
it,
zoning out
yes.
it. Okay, that's all I have.
are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay, any, I don't think we have any other,
No other cards?
right? Okay, no other cards. Is there any,
I'd like to make a motion.
okay, Commissioner Atkinson?
I move to approve the change from RR1 to agriculture.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Atkinson, and we have a second by Commissioner Goodson. Clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Delaney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Goodson,
Yes.
Commissioner Adkinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Altman,
Yes.
Chair Fellner.
Yes. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to move on to H6.
Commissioner, H6 and H7, I will read into the record together. However, they'll need a separate motion. This is Linde, formerly known as Praxair, represented by Kimberly Rezanka, request a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment under 24S.016 to change the future land use from PI and Res 2 to all heavy light industrial under application 24SS00016, located in District 1. Linde Inc. requests a change in zoning classification from IU to IU1 under application 24Z00062, located in District 1.
Okay, Kim.
Excuse me, Commissioner, if I may, before you begin.
Okay.
I wanted to clarify that the small scale, this is approval to transmit it to the state. So this will come back, if you approve it tonight, after it's been reviewed by the state. They'll send back an ORC report. Then we'll have to go through the adoption phase.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, Kim.
I apologize, member of the board. Just that what she just said applies to H8, not H7. This is not for transmittal. This is for adoption of the small-scale comprehensive plan amendment.
Good evening, Chairman, members of County Commission. What I've given you has already been in the record. It was just easier for my staff, my team, to review it if necessary, and you don't have to flip through to find it. That picture with the truck on it has already been in the record. The letters of support were provided, but don't seem to appear in the record. They were sent to individually. So I did want to give those letters of support to you individually. I am here today on behalf of Linde Inc. With me is Dave I can't say his name, Yaleski, Director of Capital Projects. He's in from Connecticut. Happy to be here. Ben Vesquez, the local facilities manager. Sean Chase, the local production superintendent. And Chris Harnden, the environmental consultant, who's here to answer questions if there's any questions about wetlands. Linde Air, formerly known as Praxair, is an industrial gas company that supplies products to support contractors at KSC and NASA. Also has oxygen supplies to hospitals and has many, many uses that they can tell you about further than I can. The property's future land use designation is currently planned industrial and residential Res 2. The applicant desires to change the land use to heavy light industrial and zoning to heavy industrial. The purpose is to make this all consistent so they can actually expand their production. In 2018, they did expand their production. There was a rezoning, and they did put a cold box in, but they need more. As everyone knows, with 2 to 3 launches a week, their product is in high demand. It has no intention to build affordable housing. That is not the business they're in, and if you have concerns about there, they'll willingly to enter into a BDP to prevent that. The property is in rural Mims, north of Titusville city limits, along the Indian River, west and adjacent to the railroad, 4 miles north of Maxborough Parkway, and 8 miles south of Brevard County, Volusia County line. There's no adjacent developed housing, and there are industrial uses to the south and a county park, Jones Avenue boat ramp, and Mims to the north. Again, we're seeking a small-scale amendment and rezoning on 10.46 acres to heavy industrial and zoning to heavy industrial. This is about 1/2 of the 22-acre site that's already developed. As I said, the reason is for them to expand production and to install a second cold box. I'd like to have Dave Yagleski, Director of Capital Projects, talk to you about Linde, what it does, and why they need to expand.
Okay, thanks. Good evening. I appreciate the time to come in and talk to you about this. I'll start with a little bit of what is industrial gases. I don't know if everybody is familiar with that, but Linde is a $34 billion company with 66,000 employees, and we operate in about 100 different countries. We really take air and separate it into its constituents in terms of oxygen, nitrogen, argon, xenon, krypton, neon, and all the different constituents of air used in many different areas of manufacturing. If you look around in this room or as you're driving down the street, almost everything that you'll see has some form of industrial gas that gets used in this manufacturing, but most people don't ever recognize that that happens. We have a facility that's been on the property in MIMS since 1966 to support primarily the Apollo program when it started. We've used the products that we make there in all sorts of different other applications, manufacture of glass, metal, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors. So it's a very safe process that we do. We are on Dow Jones's Sustainable Index for the past 22 years because we do this process very safely. We also have industrial leading safety performance for the processes that we do. One of our big customers, as Kim said, is the space industry. And with the increase in the launches, they need our product to be fuel for the vehicles. So we're here to ask for this rezoning to allow us to expand our facility. We currently have about 30 employees at the site. We would double that, and then we would also double the production capacity of the facility as well. So we request this expansion. We request this so that we can move forward with expansion and be able to support the industry out on the Space Center. If there are any questions.
Okay. Commissioner Delaney?
What type of experience do you need to get some of these jobs that you're talking about?
I might ask Sean or Ben to come up here and talk about the interview process there a little bit.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you. Excuse me. So we have various positions within the plant. Sean Chase, I apologize. We have various jobs on the facility. Some of those jobs are driving the vehicles. They would need to have, obviously, certified truck drivers with hazmat experience and tanker experience. We also have technicians on the facility. Some of those are instrumentation and electrical technicians. Obviously, we need some training and skill set behind that. And then we also have just plant technicians, which are essentially operators. So a little bit, not quite as much education as maybe an I&E person would need. But that's the vast majority of that outside of the staff, the superintendents and the plant manager.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I have a question.
Commissioner Adkinson.
So is this process noisy?
I will say the process does involve compression equipment and cooling towers that have a level of noise that goes along with them, but it's very difficult to hear once you're at the outside battery limit of the property.
So as obviously our area grows, I guess this is more of a question for staff. If it gets noisier or more frequently noisier, how does that play into what we have out there?
They are and will continue to be subject to the noise performance standards found in county code, particularly Chapter 46, Article 4, Sections 62.14.83 and 62.18.33.5. And so, and in addition, this is only the first step. They're going to have to come back in for a CUP. And at that point, the board will have the opportunity to consider, not only just reiterate that, but impose any other conditions it may see fit.
I'll ask a follow-up to that because you've been operating out there since the mid-'60s.
Yes.
Is that right? Has to anyone's knowledge, has there been noise problems or conflict up there with this property?
To my knowledge, we haven't got any complaints on this property.
Okay.
Yeah, and the expansion won't raise the noise level from where it sits now. There's no new processes that are going to come in and be any noisier than the existing facility.
Commissioner Goodson.
Be prepared for complaints to come, because if you know anything about a railroad track, You build beside it, and it's been there 150 years. We have the same problem in North Merritt Island right now. So it will come.
Okay.
Commissioner Delaney, is that an old light or is
New
that a new
one.
one? That's a new one? Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to, I just hadn't gotten there yet. I just wanted to put this out there. When it comes back for the CUP, some of the things that I'd like to be addressed is the noise and the traffic, because we had talked about the increased semis coming in and out of that area and going on to US 1. That is a little concerning to me. With all of that being said, I went into this community. I talked to the residents that are up there, and they say that you guys are great neighbors and great partners with the community. So I'm not too concerned about this. Plus, you guys have all of those tree buffers on your property that you said that you're not planning on taking down.
Correct.
And so maybe there's some other noise mitigation things we could talk about at a later time, but yeah,
That wouldn't be a problem.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? We do have a card, I think.
I actually wasn't
Okay.
finished, Chairman.
I'm sorry, in
That's
your
okay.
presentation.
That's right. Yeah. Also, too, if Commissioner Goodson would like, what they do here is different than Liquid Air. They don't have the same piping and things like that. So, but yes, that would be a condition when we come back for a conditional use permit, which at that point you would be able to add conditions to it. We haven't come with that yet because it takes a full-blown site plan. The document that was provided to you that was in the materials already in the staff report, it shows what the intended is on page 4 of just, it's a conceptual. It hasn't been reviewed by staff, but that's what would come back and to do that with the site plan and the dimensions for the height and things like that. So we're not at that stage yet. As to wetlands, there's no impacts planned. There's quite a bit of wetlands here, and the staff report talks about it. I also talked with Mr. Prasad about that today. There are some restrictions on that due to the Res 2 being in place for so long. The idea is to make this one compatible land use and zoning. The plant's been in existence since 1966. There's no houses around it. Also to the west of it is mostly wetland property. I know many people look to develop. I don't think that it's going to be developed anytime soon because of the wetlands, and the comprehensive plan would prohibit that. We are just attempting to make it consistent so they can expand, and we will come back before you again with a conditional use permit. As to the traffic, we did consult with LTG. They're putting together a proposal to review the intersection at Wiley Avenue and US 1 because of the increase in trucks. They're concerned that you can't get a full traffic signal, maybe a flashing light, or maybe some traffic calming or reducing the speed along that area. So we have looked at it. We just don't have anything to present to you at this time, but that would definitely come back with a conditional use permit. So I know that was a concern, and they've even admitted it's a concern for them because people take that as a speedway up there. So with that, if there are any other questions, we have, as I said, Mr. Herndon here is the wetlands expert, and we're happy to answer any further questions. If not, we would ask that you approve both the future land use and the zoning as requested. And the BDP if you'd like, but again, you could put that on the conditional use permit as well.
Okay, we do have one card. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay, Sandra Sullivan.
Good evening. So I'm glad the noise issue came up. So just this property zoned in 1961, before we had Department of Community Affairs with land planning, comprehensive plans, which came 20 years later or so. So when you look at that, you know, it is non-conforming with the area, but obviously a great business, been there for a long time. As they take this property to the north and develop, that's where they're approaching, where there are some houses at the north end of that. And so I might suggest that there be a buffer at the north end just to address, because similar type plant had some noise issue. The primary reason I came up here to speak is an objection to the staff report and the staff comments. And so I want to bring your attention, and I would appreciate, Ms. Rezanka mentioned that she would be amenable to a BDP to prohibit live local since that's not the intent. So let's take her at our word on that. But staff put in here that the potential for this property was because it has a FAR, which is intensity use, of 1.76, that they could put 313 dwelling units with a development potential of 30 units per acre pursuant to the Live Local Act, Affordable Housing, You Will Own Nothing and Be Happy law. And to that, I talked to Billy Prasad after the meeting, and I said, I've read Live Local a few times. I don't see the language that you're saying in that bill. So I went home, read it again, but he told me he had a document. Oh, just records requested, I'll send it to you. So I did, sent him a records request. And so what he sent me, it paraphrases what is in Live Local, which says, additionally, a county may not restrict the height of such development below the highest allowed height for commercial or residential development in its jurisdiction within 1 mile of the proposed development, or 3 stories, whichever is higher, which is what I stated. So the issue I have is I've researched this very much, there's no equivalency between intensity use and density use. And so I think this needs to be cleared up on this particular property, so we don't have this coming forward on other properties that come before this commission. There's nothing in Senate Bill 102 about intensity use equivalency. Now, this doesn't apply if this is, light industrial, but converting it to heavy industrial or any other heavy industrial, the claim is made by staff that there is an equivalency between intensity and density. And Live Local does not have that. And so, if need be, I am requesting this commission to go out to an Attorney General legal opinion, because there's a lot of complexity with Senate Bill 102, and moving forward on this issue and make sure that we have some clarity on this issue. But for today, I'm requesting to take Ms. Rezanka's offer, since they have no intent for Live Local, and build that into the BDP. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. That was the only card that we had on that. Is there discussion on the item? Commissioner Delaney.
We can deal with all of these things during the CUP process. The potential of Live Local, the traffic, the noise, all of that stuff.
I'm not sure about dealing with the Live Local through the CUP. The other things, the answer I think is yes, but the Live Local
we would need to be
is a specific exemption from a rezoning, so it would still be a commercial or industrial zoning, and therefore be subject to the Live Local Act. I would note it is today. It already is. So the request doesn't change that. But I don't see how you could exempt it in any way from the Live Local Act through a CUP.
Director Prasad is correct on all counts there. But he's also correct in that the current potential unit yield under Live Local, as it's currently zoned, will be the same if you grant the rezoning. There's no change regarding Live Local implications.
Since the applicant is offering, is that something that would build in any kind of protection?
If the applicant wants to submit a binding development plan, we can certainly do that.
If that's what you would like, Commissioner,
we'll do that. Thank you.
And what is, can I ask, what's that BDP consist of? What is it?
I imagine it would be an agreement on the part of the applicant that they won't utilize the property for a Live Local project, essentially.
Correct.
A Live Local project or just residential apartment dwellings?
Well, they won't be able to do residential apartment dwellings with the rezoning that's contemplated unless they were to do it as a Live Local project.
Right, okay.
Because it's going to have an industrial zoning, and the industrial zoning doesn't allow for a residential component.
Okay, and we have these 2 items, so I think we got a couple things to figure out. Is that something that you're amenable to?
Yes, sir.
For Commissioner
zoning, yes, sir.
Delaney? Okay, and so which one do we need to do that on, Billy? That's what I thought, okay. All right, so with that said, Commissioner Delaney, is there a motion on H6?
I would like to move to approve the land use designation from PI to Res 2.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Delaney. We have a second by Commissioner Altman. Clerk will call the roll on H6.
That's not.
Oh, no?
It's PI and Res 2 to all and high. It's
Oh,
all
I'm sorry.
Industrial. That's all right.
I should have kept
Okay.
It's confusing.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I would like to make a motion to go forward with the land use designation change from PI and Res 2 to all heavy, light industrial,
Okay.
IND.
And Commissioner Altman, that's your second as well? Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Delaney. We have a second by Commissioner Altman. Clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Delaney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Goodson,
Yes.
Commissioner Adkinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Altman,
Yes.
Chair Feltner.
Yes, we'll show that one adopted. Now we'll go on to H7. Commissioner Delaney.
I would like to make a motion to approve the zoning change from, is it IU to IU1 with the BDP to restrict a live local project.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Delaney. Is there a second? We have a second by Commissioner Atkinson. Clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Delaney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Goodson,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Altman,
Yes.
Chair Feltner.
Yes, we'll show that one passes too.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you all for what you guys do for the community. And Scottsmore MIMS, there's 30 great jobs coming, so get your applications and get over there.
Okay. Commissioners, we're going to go on to H8.
H8 is Christopher Espanet, represented by Kimberly Rezanka, requests a comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use designation from Res 1 to Res 2 under application 24SS00013, located in District 3. And this one is approval for transmittal to the state. It will come back with an ORC report, which then we'll have the time to resolve any issues in that and choose to adopt it within 180 days.
Okay. You have binders too, huh?
Pardon me?
Yeah, you have binders too.
I
Yeah,
do.
not part of the new way.
All right. Again, Chairman Feltner, members of the County Commission, Kim Rezanka on behalf of Chris Espanet. This is a future land use request to change from Res 1 to Res 2. My binder is the over 500 pages of public comment you have that I just received most of today and have not really had a chance to review, including the one on the screen in front of me. But we are here to move forward. We are not requesting a continuance. There are people here, and we're moving forward. I'm glad to see Mr. Altman made it. I was worried about that. This is, y'all in a catch-22 situation. I understand that. You have staff telling you one thing. You have hundreds of people telling you something else. You have been bombarded by emails. This is a problematic situation that seems almost illogical, unreasonable, and senseless. The whole purpose here is to allow one house on 0.7 acres. Your staff has told you can't do this because it violates your comprehensive plan. However, we do not believe it violates your comprehensive plan because of the structure of your comprehensive plan and the glossary terms in your own comprehensive plan. And Mr. Jim McKnight is here with me, and he'll go through that with you, also with me as Mr. Espanet. The residents of South Brevard Beaches do not want this. They've tossed around words like illegal and violate your comp plan, breaking the law, creating precedents. None of this is true, and we'll explain that to you tonight. There's been a lot of unnecessary anger and worry about a matter that's really about one single-family house. It's truly a storm in a teacup. So first, I'd like to talk a little bit about the legislative text and addendum that your staff put together. Again, this request is also for a BDP. Your staff says that can't be done, but it's done before. It was in the packet I presented for you before, that there is precedent to having a future land use amendment with a BDP to make them consistent with your comp plan. Section 62.1-1255 of your ordinances say that is the purpose of the BDP, to make your comp plan and your future land use, your comp plan and your zoning consistent. So that has been done, that's in your packet, and it can be done. Now, it won't be able to be done again because it's also in your new comprehensive plan amendment that's been up to the state and back. It actually prohibits that from happening in your new comp plan. So this would be the second time or third time it would have been allowed. It also says in this legislative report that Res 2 would create an inconsistency between RP and the FLU designation, the RP zoning and FLU designation. It's already inconsistent because of the size of the lot. So it's already inconsistent. Now, they have said that Mr. Espanet can indeed build a commercial structure. That commercial construction can be 12,000 square feet based upon the FAR and the coverage, lot coverage. Now, a single-family house, which is allowed by the declaration to be 8,500 square feet, which won't if Mr. Espanet can build, you can have a 12,000 square foot professional offices to include group homes, to include boarding homes, to include a learning center, things that don't make sense in this neighborhood. But it seems that's what the residents want. But your staff has done that and said he is basically vested to build a commercial structure, again, 12,000 square feet. Also, it seems that there's no issue with access based upon the addendum that was provided by your staff. Also, I'd like to point out, if you watch the P&Z or you listen to LPA and listen to LPA, they were torn on this issue. They didn't want to vote on this issue, but they did indeed recommend approval because it doesn't seem fair. And this is a fairness issue. This is a policy decision that you all will need to make. Also, to be clear, it's a future land use amendment. It's not a rezoning. Most of the emails that I review think it's a rezoning. It's not. It's a legislative decision, a policy decision to be made by you. Also, Mr. Espanet never agreed that he would not submit for a future land use amendment. I see right here, Mr. Shanta's email says, oh no, he agreed. That's not true. Mr. Bennett was working for the contract purchaser back in 2018. He withdrew the application because at that time they said you can't move forward. They came to me, I disagree with staff's interpretation. Mr. McKnight disagrees with staff interpretation. And it's up to you to decide who is right. Regarding the staff report, we believe there are 3 statements in opposition which are in error. First, that Res 2 creates an inconsistency between RP zoning, already has an inconsistency which will be cured by the BDP that we submitted. That they don't talk much about any of the staff report, but there is a BDP request before you. The one that was in your packet was incorrect. It was submitted again with my packet to LPA. Second is it would violate policy 1.7 because it's not a transition. 1.8b does not say the transition has to be adjacent. You have Res 1, you have Res 2, you have Res 4. This is a transition. And this is the exact same issue that we had with Sunterra, which Mr. Goodson didn't like, I remember. But it is a transition, and there is other Res 2 and there is other Res 4 in the area. So it's not a violation of policy 1.8. Third, the request to increase intensity violates 7.1. However, it is consistent with Objective 7 of the coastal element. So there's no need to review policy 7.1. Again, Mr. McKnight will go through this information with you about your glossary and your terms. The staff report never says how this CPA, oh, actually, I take this back. Staff report goes in detail about how this request will not violate the Barrier Protection Act, the Brevard Barrier Island area that Mr. Altman was involved with. That's section 388.05535. This is not on the beach. It's not on the dunes. There's no sea turtles. There's no wetlands. Nothing that's in that law that is intended to protect increased density. So, and staff does a great job of supporting our position on that. I ask that you look at this rationally. I know there's a lot of emotion that was in those emails, and you may hear tonight. One house is more compatible than a 12,000 square foot commercial professional office that can have multiple uses. It's not in a coastal high hazard area. The map provided shows that. Mr. Espanet did not create the lot or the condominium that has caused this problem. If he made a mistake, it proves he's human, but he will tell you he got direction from staff, not in writing, and that he thought that RP, he could build a house. He's asking for assistance from the county. Placing blame on him for a bad real estate deal is unfair, and it's not evidence. Fourth, this does not impact any concurrency levels of service. Your staff report supports that. Again, this is a policy decision made by you. 6, the Florida Commerce Department will review this. This will go up to the state. They will say whether or not it makes sense to them, and they will also review any building permits submitted by Mr. Espanet. So the Department of Commerce will review this. 7, this will not create any precedential value, as these facts, this lot, this condominium are unique and likely incapable of replication. That word precedent has been thrown around like candy at a parade in all of these different emails. It's not true. And Mr. McKnight will say that. I gave you a sheet that I now can't find mine on 2 pages, the law dictionary from Blacks and also a Cornell Law Review article that talks about what a precedent is. And you have to have similar facts, similar property. Again, the fact, identical or similar facts and similar legal issues. I cannot imagine, nor have I seen in my 25 years of doing this, anything like this before. So this will not create a precedent. Again, you can submit a BDP for future land use. It's done, it's been done. Zoning regulations need to be looked at just like comp plan regulations according to the case law. Hoffman versus Brevard County Board of Commissioners, a 50 CA case from 1980. You have to give their terms the broadest definition. So when you're looking at these glossary terms, they need to be looked at in the favorable light of what we're proposing here, that you don't get to the policy if you don't meet the objective, or if you meet the objective. The policy is to define the objective. I'd also point to the private property rights element of your comp plan and the potential that applying this policy 7.1 in this manner to this property may indeed create a takings issue. Not that we want to go there, but being involved in another Burt Harris case with the county, this is the application of a policy that definitely impacts his ability. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to Mr. Espanet.
Good evening, staff. Commissioners. Sorry. I'm not good with speaking with crowds. It makes me nervous. I'm more of an introvert, so you'll have to forgive me. My name is Chris Espanet. I've been a Florida resident for 50 years. My children and grandchildren live here as well. I purchased the property from developer Doug Lally in 2005. Attorney Phil Knorr of Gray Robinson drafted the condo docs and that are recorded in Brevard County official records. The recorded docs are attached to the deeds of both units, 1 and 2. As a general contractor since 1990,
I've always done due diligence. Prior to purchasing, I made a trip to planning and zoning with Pat Stay's listing info and the recorded documents from Phil Knorr, which included the plot plan by Allen Engineering. It appears staff in 2005 interpreted Objective 7 differently, knowing that if Objective 7 is met, policy does not apply. Although nothing in writing was received, they did inform me at the time all looked good and there was no issues. I went on my way and proceeded with the purchase of the property. I sat on the property through the years with plans of building a home. A dozen or so years later, I suffered financial and personal hardship along with health issues. A difficult decision was made and the property was listed for sale. It went under contract and the buyers hired Clayton Bennett to perform due diligence. Buyers withdrew the contract in 2018 after being informed a home could not be built on a 7/10 of an acre, a single-family home, to the surprise of myself and all parties involved. Staff has mentioned this is a one-of-a-kind historic case. If another property has had this issue, I would be very surprised and would like to know about it. I think it's sheer hypocrisy that some of the residents who live behind me in Lighthouse Cove are opposed to me building a single-family home on 7/10 of an acre, saying it will impact the area. Lighthouse Cove's multifamily development consists of 80 two-story townhomes crammed into 10th-acre lots. After hearing inaccurate assumptions from two of Lighthouse Cove's residents from the last meeting, it is clear the unit owners do not want anything built on my property. I have yet to hear a complaint from Lighthouse Cove about the view they've enjoyed on my tax expense for the last 20 years. Someone at the last meeting even called the 7/10 of a lot substandard. I didn't get that one, but the other thing is throughout the years, $40,000+ in taxes weren't requested by the county, they were expected and paid. The county, which is funded by taxes, hasn't helped find a solution. Hopefully they can today. It is evident from the opposition letters that the public are grossly misinformed and simply jumped on the bandwagon. I have looked up the addresses of many opposed and have yet to find one that lives on a property larger than the one I plan to build a home on. And also notice many of them have arrived only in the last few years. So I don't know what they're being told. I'm not sure who the ringleader is in all this, but it saddens me that people would show up and oppose someone building a single-family home on a suitable 7/10 acre lot rather than offer support and help find a solution, like a good neighbor. Objective 7 states limit densities within the coastal high hazard zone and direct development outside the area. The property is located outside the coastal high hazard zone, therefore policy 7.1 doesn't apply, as objective trumps policy. We meet objective 7, so policy 7.1 doesn't come into play. You can't get past the overall objective because development has been directed outside the coastal high hazard area. When due diligence was performed in 2005, it appears Objective 7 was interpreted differently by staff. What we all do know is that the South Beaches is riddled with inconsistent zoning, and this would be a good transition. This would not increase density because we are building one single-family home on one single lot. I would like to point out that being in an area of critical state concern sets guidelines. It doesn't prohibit development. At the last meeting, one of the staff members mentioned that Brevard County entered into an agreement with the state that they must make people's land usable and that you can't deny the use of a person's property. The motion for this item passed at the November 18th meeting because the majority of staff knew it clearly made sense. You know, let's do the right thing today. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. Just real quick before you go, are there questions of the applicant? Are there any questions for the applicant? No. Okay, we're going to go to the cards.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks for your time.
All right. I think they had their 15 minutes, so we're done with presentation. Are you going to ask for?
I would ask for more time for Mr. McKnight to speak.
Okay, I think that's something that the board has to decide. Do we want to give the applicant? Okay.
5 more minutes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Just for you, Jim.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I am Jim McKnight. I am a planner. I will make this quick. I spent 40 years in local government on that side in a lot of meetings, so I appreciate what you guys are having to do tonight. I want to hit a couple of things that are very important in here. One is, when you look at the areas of critical state concern, there are two primary things in the statute. One is the beach, the turtles, and protecting that resource. The other is the Indian River Lagoon. This project in no way will impact either one of those items in the 380 statute that we all refer to. So it's important to kind of ratchet back on that. There's also something that was troubling to me that I really read a lot today. In the statute that we refer to, because we keep going back to that, it says it does not affect existing land use or zoning with the barrier island before July 1 of 2023. So on this side, you have the Res 1. On this side, you have an RP zoning. Yet we're saying you can't use the RP zoning because it doesn't line up with the Res 1. That's why the Res 2 is being required, because that's what the land use plan says. So to me, it's a conflict with the state statute in that the individual's not able to build this one home, which we know RP allows you to build something that's a mixed use, professional and residential, or each one can go its different way, residential or professional. I think the most important thing is this is a transition, an obvious transition that is very compatible with the area. And from a planning perspective, that's what we look at, is how is this compatible? And we can go over the guiding principles and disagree on that, but I think the most important thing that we look at is compatibility. And I know that there are different opinions on that, and even looking at RP, the lot coverage in RP is less than you would have for any other type of use. So you've got an opportunity, I think, to look at what best fits this piece of property. Like I said, I did this for over 40 years. I've never seen a case like this. I've seen a lot of different zoning nuances, odd things that occur, but never one that actually fell out quite like this does. Also, you look at the goal, the objective, and the policy, okay, from the Brevard County Comprehensive Plan. And it says, and I'll just go beyond the goal, okay, because the goal's kind of up here. And look at the objective that limits densities within the coastal high hazard area and direct development outside of this area. This area is, while part of the barrier island, is clearly outside of the area that has the major impacts. And I think the objective is being met. I would disagree with staff on that the objective is being met by what is trying to be done by the applicant. And I don't see the difference. This is not a precedent-setting case, my opinion. I'm not your county attorney. I'm sure he has a different opinion. But precedent is based on the case itself. It doesn't establish for something that's totally unrelated like this. So I don't have a lot of, I think Ms. Rezanka covered everything, but I think the compatibility is the biggest issue. Does this fit in the area? And I think from a planning standpoint, it absolutely meets that. So I'm only going to use 4 minutes, Mr. Feltner, and I'm done.
All right, sir. Thanks for clarification there. Erica Orris. They get 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Erica Orris. Good to see all our new commissioners up there. I live at 263 Loggerhead Drive. And so I am a member of the South Beaches. And I did attend the workshop that was held on Wednesday, August 28th for the critical area of concern. And the biggest issues were getting people off the island, density, growing density, right? So immediately when I hear things like we are going to, our density is going to be increased. And it does go against policy 7.1, where it says Brevard County shall not, increase residential density designations for properties located on the barrier island between the southern boundary of Melbourne Beach and the Sebastian Inlet. That's a truth. And then we look at using a PDP should not be used as a mechanism to restrict density. So I think that, to look at this and say, well, it's one house, it's so innocuous, it's just one house. But let's look at the history. So this has tried to be shoved through 2 times before. 2 times this has come to staff. And each time the advisory board said no. This time the advisory board actually said yes, right? Unfortunately, it was like a squabble. I said no, because I live there, because I know what it's like. I try to get out on, it isn't just the turtles, it's the people. We're trying to get out on A1A. We want to get here. We can't even get here. Evacuations, everything else is like it's very difficult down there. We have to do something different. And so I think for us to immediately, out of the gate, after establishing a critical area of concern, say, okay, well, let's say back in 2005, a mistake was made. I'm just finding it now, right? I just found it in 2018, but I want everything changed. I think it's too much, and I think it does. I'm going to use the word precedent, because it does set a bad precedent. So, yes, it should have been caught a long time ago. I've done a lot of real estate transactions myself, and some of them have been horrific. And you know what happens then? I've had to eat it, because I've made the mistake. I don't go to the county. I don't plead. I don't cry. I don't say 18 years later, oh my gosh, I just noticed this. I eat it. All right? That's the most thing that we're concerned about, is the increase in density. So that's all I have to say. Obviously I feel bad. I understand. I've made these mistakes. But you know what? It was a mistake. And I think he needs a lawyer, to help him do something different, but not come before the board like this. This does not help us. Thank you.
Sandra Sullivan.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to start with thanking Thad Altman for sponsoring this bill for the area of critical concern and responding to all the people and all their concerns that what Brevard has is so incredibly special. So, there's a lot of history down there from a small area study and, the Archie car, and of course the sea turtles are super important because that area is the largest loggerhead nesting in the world. It used to be Armand. They used to have twice as much. That's gone. That ship sailed. Brevard's the future. And I just want to read something. So this is the staff report. Administrator Policy 3, it says compatibility. So they talked about compatibility a lot. So it says Res 1 is the predominant flue designation within the immediate surrounding area. So the policy says compatibility with existing or proposed land uses shall be the factor in determining where a rezoning or any application involving a specific proposed use is being considered. So that would not comply with that. I want to just give you a little bit of history. So we had a situation a few years ago where an issue for an upzoning of a property in South Beaches came here before the previous commission. And at that time, the District 3 commissioner listened to 37 people speak. They were very prepared. They didn't talk about, I don't like this. They talked about and cited policy. And he didn't care what the people said. And it was voted through. And they recognized at that time that the commission would not listen to the will of the people. And so they said, we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to go to the state. And so it was with a great deal of effort by a lot of people, and again, a lot of gratitude to Mr. Thad Altman in bringing this bill forward. What I have advocated for over the years, and is my passion, is evacuation. Because, like the previous speaker said, we have studies done by the Eastern Central Regional Planning Council as part of disasterflorida.org. We are 63 hours to evacuate the barrier island, as it is right now. We were much less than that, and they increased it recently. I'll say that again, 63 hours to evacuate. Now you start paying attention to some of the hurricanes. How many hours do you get? 14, 15? People die. And that's reality. And South Beaches is very vulnerable. It basically got one way out on a very congested road. And if you don't have adequate time to get out, you're not going to get everybody out. And that area is so environmentally sensitive. You get a hurricane, there's sections of that with a Cat 5 or a Cat 4 that'll wash right through and create a new what do you call it, area of water going into the lagoon. It's very narrow strips of lands in that area. So we're talking life safety here. And so it might just seem like one upzoning, one more house, but it's the big picture. I want to just show you something. This was the group of people that showed up to the area critical concern meeting when Bonnie Landry made their presentation. There was a lot of people wanted and came, a lot of public engagement, we the people. And so they took a survey, Bonnie Landry did, and this is the results of that survey. And this column right here is density and intensity. That is the #1 issue of the residents in South Beaches. So as you listen to your own staff report who does not feel like this is compatible, and the people who have voiced their concerns, and our legislators, just for how environmentally sensitive this is, not just for the sea turtles, and not just for the lagoon and the ocean and all of the wildlife, but also it's very vulnerable for the people that live there. So I hope you'll support the people and support the compatibility in the laws and vote no for this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Richard Drapow, did I say that right?
Good evening. My name is Richard Drapo, and I live at 147 Cassique Trail, and I'm here to voice my opposition to converting the said lot from R1 to R2. It seems like an extreme and extraordinary request. Now, I can't respond to all of the technical terminology, so I think most of us there look at this as something that happened when the property was subdivided, which created, in my opinion, a non-conforming lot. And, if the stated requirement for a buildable lot is 1 acre, and if the board is allowing variations from that requirement, why do we have a residential 1 zone at all? If somebody can just come in and make a request and get approval for something that appears to be substandard. I had another comment. I wanted to refer to, and I know this may be an objection, to what's in the zoning variance process. And because I know that there's a hardship that's being claimed here because of the taxes that have been paid by the applicant. but I'd like to read the definition of a hardship, if I could. In some special circumstances, makes it difficult for a project to meet the zoning code, a hardship may be established. A hardship generally occurs when the physical characteristics of a property are such that it cannot be used for any purpose permitted by county codes. A hardship may be created by the surroundings, shape, or topographical conditions particular to that specific property. However, the hardship cannot be self-imposed or the result of the property owner's own action. And then there is another section of the zoning process that states, in no case shall the Board of Adjustment grant a variance which will result in a change of land use that would not be permitted in the applicable zoning classification. So that's kind of where I'm at and wondering why, this is even being considered. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mark Shantis. I was going to say it's not possible he left.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome, new commissioners. My name is Mark Shantis. I am the Executive Director of the Barrier Islands Preservation and Protection Association. We've been around for 34 years. Our motive is to balance the development on the Barrier Islands along with the natural habitat and wildlife that are there. We are not anti-development. We are about balancing the development because of things like evacuation, infrastructure, which we have none of. It's a 2-lane road going in and out. There's no water, sewer. There's all kinds of problems. One more, what I'm going to call it, illegal. Septic tank is not needed there. And basically what you've got is a property, as this gentleman just before had said, that was properly zoned and then got subdivided and made one property that was correct and one property that wasn't. That was the making of the original developer, who, when he made it into a 2-unit condominium, instead of cutting it in half, so you'd have 0.85 and 0.85, like anybody would do in a condominium, a 2-unit condominium, made it 1 unit and 0.7. He was no dummy. Okay, his 1 unit for his 1 acre was compliant. The others were not. This first page that you're going to see right here is from an application. Yeah, you get me. From Sharon Hill. That was in 2019, and it flat out says, this is the representative of the applicant that's saying that the property is non-compliant. He's saying it himself that he made a mistake, okay? What we basically, can you turn me on up there? Hello? Okay. What you've got here is the applicant saying that they have made a mistake, and then you have staff saying that there's an insurmountable feat prohibiting this approval request. Okay? Hello, Dot. Right, well, it's right there. Okay? So it's insurmountable is what they're saying in 2019. Then what happens is the applicant goes ahead and says, we're taking back our application. We will not be submitting if you give us back a refund. So they cut a deal with the county saying, give me back my money and we won't do this again. Okay? Then they went ahead and filed in 2022 again, They filed in 2024 again, and they're now here today again. Okay? Insurmountable feat, a policy which is prohibited approval. That's the staff. So the question is, are you going to follow binding law and the constitutional land use of the CME, of the comp plan? You're going to follow the staff comments where 10 times they said this does not comply. 5 times they said it's in violation of 7.1. Okay, if you take a look at right here, up on the screen. Okay? So are we going to break the law and violate 7.1 and increase zoning because of a buyer's mistake that he admits of his own making? Or are we going to support the binding law? Okay? Are you going to support binding law of the comprehensive plan or break the law? It's as simple as that. It's not complicated. Here's the law, which is then duplicated again in 12.1 that was sent to Commerce just shortly ago. So there's both 7.1 of the comp plan and 12.1 sent, whoops, up north to Commerce. Chief Stansberry, who sent back his comments already. Morris, and that's basically what you got. So you've got a guy who went ahead and created his own problem. You have a law that says you can't do that, and now you have a choice of following the law or helping somebody else, helping somebody make a profit on a property that they made a mistake. Hey, I'd love to buy a stock, have it go to zero, and then you pay me for it.
All right, Mark.
Appreciate it.
Robert to court.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Robert DeCourt. I live at 5610 South Highway A1A. My property abuts the applicant's property. Before I get going, I'd like to make one correction to a blatantly false statement that was made, and that there's nobody else that's currently opposed to this that owns land greater than 0.7 of an acre. My land is compliant. It is indeed 1 acre, and the applicant knows that, given that he is my neighbor. One of the things, and I'm new to land use, but it seems to me one of the key principles of it is a changing something that's been around for a long time in the legitimate public purpose or interest. Does it do anything for the public? Does it help? Does it add a hospital? Does it provide access to where there is no access? Does it increase the well-being of the citizens? We're certainly going to make a big change here if approved, and the answer to that's clearly no. Is there anybody, if this is approved in Brevard County, that wakes up tomorrow morning and says, boy, my life is going to be better? The answer to that obviously is also no. One of the other things I'd like to talk a little bit about is numbers. Pesky little numbers. They're necessary because obviously they provide a foundation for many, many, and many times certainty when we make a decision in life. They're vitally important, particularly here on the Space Coast. Do we launch the rocket? The numbers say it's okay. Important to people like nurses, like my wife, who dispense medications. Very important. It says give them this much, you give them exactly that much. Also turns out financial professionals, and not surprisingly, also land use and planning specialists. They can't do their job without numbers. Now, most of the plans are mostly words, but if you read it very carefully, most of the words are about numbers. So what we have here is that we all make decisions based on numbers. Everybody in this room makes a decision based on numbers. When I bought my property, I made a decision based on numbers. I based it on the land use planning, I based it on what had happened before, and I struck a bargain for a price. knowing full well what I was getting into, realizing that under the current circumstances, that lot could not be built on. Then, as it is today, as it was for the day that that property was purchased. So, let's talk a little bit about the two numbers that we're talking about today, 0 and 0. Why are they important? Well, Brevard County has determined and stipulated in writing many years ago that the residential density between south of Melbourne Beach and Sebastian Inlet, that the answer to that was 0. It could not increase. Similarly, the designation of the property as Res 1, given the substandard nature of the area of the property, meant that it could build 0 residences. What we're asking, the applicant is asking now, is to basically, for no reason of public interest, go change those numbers. Say it's okay to increase the density of the South Beaches. It's okay to take the Res 1 and change that now to Res 2 with a whole bunch of other contortions to make it palatable. Finally, the other number we want to talk about is the number 1, particularly as it relates to the idea that the number of homes that can be built on there for Res 1 is 1 per acre. We're now supposed to believe that 0.7 is equal to 1. And by corollary, 1.3 is equal to 1. So by proving this, there's a future thought that you would be putting in place the Brevard County land use 30% criteria rule. Why not build a house 4 stories?
Thank you, sir.
Can I ask him a question real quick?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Did I hear you right by saying that you live in the house directly next to this property?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, just so that you know, we have about 35 more minutes worth of cards here. And so I'm going to propose maybe we take a 5-minute break and come back and do those and finish this item. Okay? Can we do that? Morris? Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. We're going to just take 5 minutes. Thanks. Tracy Hines? Is Tracy here? Your turn, Tracy. Yeah. It's okay. You're recognized.
My apologies. We were
It's okay.
chatting away. I didn't realize 5 minutes was up. My
Understood.
name is Tracy Hines. I live at 182 Kasiki Trail. I am in Lighthouse Cove. And I want to thank y'all for hearing us out today. First of all, I want to say this is not a tempest in a teacup. This is a big deal in the South Beaches in the grand scheme of things. I know the word precedent has been thrown around. I'm going to throw it around again. There are 3 properties that are waiting on this zoning change to go into effect. If you go into Realtor.com, they're already citing it and saying pending zoning change. The large lot next door, 5660 Highway A1A, is saying it's ready for a boutique townhouse community. So if y'all open this Pandora's box and allow this increase from RES1 to RES2, it's going to be a domino effect down the beaches, in my view. So again, it's very important to us to try to keep the character of the area. My family has been in Melbourne Beach since 1967. It means a lot to me. South Beaches has always been a special place. There's no place else for the sea turtles. There are gopher turtles galore on this property. Can't ignore that. They will just dive. They're relocated. Wanted to also point out big differences. We were talking about numbers. 1 acre is 43,560 square feet. That's the requirement for a lot size in our area. This 0.7 acre is 30,492 square feet. That is 13,068 square feet of difference. That's a lot of square footage. Now, what difference does that really make? Well, we have no sewer, we have no water. In that space, you must have a well, you must have a drain field, and you cannot risk contamination. We have a well for Lighthouse Cove that is right on the northeast corner of our property. It is a 4-inch well. If you look at it under the regs for the county, it's 200 feet. There's just not the square footage. That's why the original land use, when it was set at 1 acre, was brilliant because it allowed for everybody to have their well, their septic, for everything else. When you narrow it down, 0.7 is actually closer to 0.5 than it is to 1 acre. So looking at it and saying, we don't want contamination of our water supply. Also looking at it and saying, yes, it is in the middle, but it's still going to have an effect on our runoff, our storm drainage. We flooded with the last hurricanes. A1A is always underwater. It's a high-risk area. So I beg you to deny this petition for the change. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? Comments, snide remarks? I take them all.
We already did that. You missed it. Amy Rickman.
Oh, hello, Commissioners. Commissioner Goodson and Adkinson and Feltner and Altman and Delaney. My name is Amy Sewell Rickman, and my family moved to Indialantic in 1950, and my husband and I have lived in Melbourne Beach for 15 years. And so I'm here to ask you please to deny this request to change zoning from Residence 1 to Residence 2. And there are many people in the room are here, are close neighbors to this property. And I have been to see 5610. I know exactly where it is. You got to go slow, but because there's a 2-lane road The road is very, very, very thin, as you know, and you've heard myriad reasons to protect this very, very fragile piece of land. But all of Melbourne Beach is aware of this. So I like to say that, that I live near the heart of Melbourne Beach. The heart of Melbourne Beach is the South Beaches. It's all of that. It's so beautiful. And this is not, that's really what, I think it's unfortunate that Phil Knorr led the owner to believe that what he was buying could be changed when all of these important legal county and state bodies have weighed in on how fragile this is. So I just want to let you know that there are a lot more people all over from Melbourne Beach all the way down to include even Indy Atlantic that are hoping that this gets to stay Residence 1. Thank you.
Question. Sewell was your maiden name?
Yes, my father's James Sewell.
Doctor?
Yes.
Yes.
My father's the first surgeon in Melbourne.
And Sewell Hardware?
Yes, and Sewell Hardware.
Yep.
And Sewell Hardware is alive and well in West Palm.
He was a great surgeon, great man.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay. Robert Logston.
Good evening, Robert Logston, 9020 Highway A1A, Melbourne Beach, Florida. I want to propose that the validity of this application is questionable. Planning and Zoning's done a credible job of presenting the facts and criteria for your review. I'm going to present some historical facts that are not provided. In January 2019, the applicant filed for a small-scale amendment for Res 2 via professional engineer. Same thing we're discussing here tonight. According to P&Z correspondence, they not even were aware of the divided parcel and advised the applicant's 0.7 acres was inconsistent and the future land use designation and coastal element prohibited it. According to recorded correspondence in the 2019 application, the county clearly states that future land use and 7.1 prohibit the approval of the request. The applicant withdrew and received a refund. What you don't know is included in the application narrative on page 1, item 4, is a statement by the applicant's representative that Mr. Espanet solely relied on the condo documents to make his purchase. There's no mention of any effort to contact P&Z staff prior to his purchase. He admits he was misled by the developer. I find it very troubling that in the review of the Land Planning Agency meeting on November 18, 2025, the applicant's attorney implies 2 times that he reached out to P&Z staff for guidance prior to the purchase. Why are we here and why is the county being held responsible for a bad real estate deal? In June of 2022, the applicant filed for a zoning verification. Once again, he was informed the property was non-compliant. December 2022, the applicant filed again with an absurd argument that somehow coastal element 7.0 was in conflict with 7.1 and this inconsistency should somehow allow us increase in density. That application morphed into a large-scale text amendment which imploded due to the implications it would affect over 50 acres on the barrier island. That application was either withdrawn or rejected. The county records aren't very clear on that. This current application, July 2024, contains the same previous arguments that were rejected by the P&Z, but adds a binding development plan which the county staff agrees doesn't apply. The applicant is providing testimony that clouds a factual issue that an increase in density is not allowed per Coastal Management Element Policy 7.1. Planning and zoning staff clearly states 4 times in their report to you that the application violates Policy 7.1. This same letter was provided to the Land Planning Agency, but the new uninformed majority of the members were mostly concerned with the money the applicant spent. They were fooled. They voted on the issue using the false narrative that we must somehow help this applicant because he continued to pay his taxes, and voted with their emotions and not their facts. All of this to help a buyer, admittedly on record, made a bad purchase in December 2005. Since when is it the responsibility of the county to provide relief to an applicant who bought a substandard lot just because he paid taxes on it? It's buyer beware. This is not a property rights issue. It's a civil case between the applicant and the condo developer that sold him the unbuildable lot. It's very concerning that planning and zoning staff review for the first applications were flat-out rejections, but this current application comes to them loaded with speculative suggestions that somehow they're asking the board to consider the following criteria. Is it consistent with the compatible and surrounding areas? No, it's not if it violates 7.1 and 12.1 of the BBIA. Does it satisfy the locational criteria established in the future land use policy 1.8? No, not when it violates 7.1 and 12.1. Is increasing the residential density designation consistent with the coastal management element policy 7.1? No, it clearly violates it. Does the request meet the intent of the Brevard Barrier Island of critical concern guiding principles? No, it also clearly violates it. The applicant's a state-certified general contractor with years of land development knowledge, multiple real estate transaction, and is also a licensed real estate agent. There's no hardship or burden caused by the county. It's a bad real estate deal. This has been a colossal waste of taxpayer money. It's a huge waste of planning and zoning time and dollars. We believe it's a civil matter between the developer and the applicant. He should be suing the developer. The responsibility to help this applicant is not with the county. The liability belongs to the applicant. Please vote against the application. Please do not provide a precedent for future crafty landowners to convert their property to a condo and then destroy the intent of the future land use plan. Thank you very much. I do have documents I want to enter for the record.
Okay. While you're doing that, Dolores Conway, you're next. We're going to have to see about that.
Hello.
We'll ask
Dolores Conway, 123 Cardinal Drive, Melbourne Beach. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. I oppose Mr. Espanet's request. The future land use plan, coastal element 7.1, is very clear that there is no density increases in the South Beaches. A change from Res 1 to Res 2 is a density increase. Mr. Espanet mentioned that he just wants to put a single-family home on, and that RP zoning is the problem. The problem is the size of the lot. The history of this lot starts with the previous owner, Mr. Lally. He bought the parcel in 2003. The 1.7-acre lot was compliant. It had no development issues. In 2005, Mr. Lally converted the 1.7-acre lot to a condo regime form of ownership. Mr. Lally split the parcel into 2 lots via condo declarations, but the lots were not created equal. One lot, Unit 2, was compliant at 1 acre. The other lot, Unit 1, at 0.7 acres, was not compliant, and it was not buildable. The subject lot, Unit 1, now has development issues. Mr. Lally, not the county, created the problem. So aside from the obvious responsibility Mr. Lally has for creating and selling Mr. Espanet a non-compliant lot, the applicant is also responsible for not completing his due diligence. It appears the applicant relied solely on the condo docs put together by Mr. Lally. At any time prior to closing, Mr. Espanet could have visited Brevard Planning and Zoning and requested a written information about the status of the lot. In 2005, the applicant was experienced and knowledgeable in land transactions. He already purchased a lot in 1997 and another lot in 2002. From 2013 to 24, the subject lot was put up for sale multiple times at multiple prices. Mr. Espanet has been a general contractor in Florida since 1990. He made a mistake, so I asked the commissioners to deny this request for the following reasons. This request increases density in the area of critical state concern. Changing the future land use map designation from Res 1 to Res 2 would set a precedent. Using BDP improperly to make this law compliant may also set a precedent. The condominium property regime form of ownership, Florida Statute 718, may also suffer a precedent. The greatest harm in approving this request is opening the door to one density request after another, using this lot as an example. This is a civil matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Beth Glover.
Good evening. I'm Beth Glover, 6630 Floridana Avenue, Melbourne Beach. I was born in Melbourne, Mr. Goodson. I'll be brief. I won't use my whole 5 minutes, but I just wanted to show you the petition that we've got, not only these people that are sitting out here in the crowd, but all these pages are full of signatures in South Beaches that we got to stop this. We do not need this increase in density. Leave it as RS1. Do not increase the density. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you getting to the point. Ralph, is it Samus or Saris? Okay.
My name is Ralph Samus. I live south of Wakarina. I live at 7810 Winona Road in Mel Beach. Chris and I have been coming here surfing for like the last 50 years. I think we're all viewing this wrong. What we're really looking at is audacity. So what happened was you had somebody who was a lawyer and a developer that decided that they could dupe the way this is done. And they figured out that planning and zoning does not have contact with the clerk of courts over condos. Is that correct? So basically what they decided was they could put through condo docs and not have to have it go to planning and zoning. It went to the clerk of courts. They gave it tax numbers. So it basically got put up there in a way that could go around people and dupe them to go through and do. There's no other land like that. I guarantee that the clerk of courts does not get condo docs from the South Beaches because Ocarina has something they could build. There's a little bit of stuff left, but there's really not a lot of space. So it's not like the clerk of courts is continuously getting stuff and they let that go through. It then let the buyer go through and do that. Look, a little bit of background on Chris. He's a good builder. Jerome Powell, the guy who's the Fed chairman, the last job he finished before he quit was he finished a huge condo for Jerome Powell. You don't get that job unless you're good. He's thorough. He don't want me to say it. I don't want to call him cheap, but I would call him frugal. I guarantee you he didn't drop 250 grand on something, go out and pay full cash, full ask or something, if he didn't go to the county and check on it, for sure. That's all I can tell you. I've been to the county before and had stuff done in planning and zoning, and then come back and had something change in that stuff too. So I don't know if he saw me or not. He stayed with me the whole time he came. I would suspect that he went out there and had somebody look at it. That's all I can tell you. The other question is, at some point in time, the county knew that they deemed his property unbuildable. Like let's say when the house was built up front, they had to look and realize that they were going to make his lot unbuildable. Is there no responsibility to tell him your lot's no longer buildable? You think you are, but we know you're not? In between that time, the guy that did the divide, that was the lawyer, and the guy who owned the property both died. So there's nobody to sue. But that system, it's his fault. But the way this went through with the clerk of courts, there's also some culpability there too. So thank you for your time. Good luck, y'all. One last thing. You've had a hard night. I'm sorry y'all are dealing with this. I'd like to take you to the eatery. It's down the road. It's down the road from his property. It's 6,200 square feet. It probably has 200 people a day go to the bathroom there. The septic system seems to work. I don't know.
New England?
New England Eatery. It's about 300 yards from where Chris's property is. So there's a lot of people that are on septic there. That system works in the south.
It's been a while since I've been down there.
Come down. That's a good night.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
All right. When the snowbirds are there, they're busy. There's no doubt. Eva. And after Eva, it's going to be Catherine. Eva, how do you say your last name?
Nagamahali.
Okay, I wasn't going
It's
to try
Hungarian.
that. Okay.
It's simple.
All right.
6501 Highway A1A. I heard everybody speaking, so I'll be brief. They said it all, and everyone was very intelligent, very dynamic, and very strong on their opinions. When you buy land, you have to know what you're doing. I'm sorry that he got hurt through it, but it is important for the density to stay as low as it is, and everyone thinks they have a major problem. You let it go this time, it will go again the next time. So please do the right thing, hear the people here tonight, and vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is it Dr. Catherine? Okay, wave and oppose? Okay, wave and oppose. That's as the former House members are telling me. Wave and oppose. Okay. All right, very good. We're done with the cards. So based on what you heard, are there questions for staff?
Yeah.
Okay. Kim? Yeah, I think Kim's out of time, but do we agree we want to give her a few minutes for a rebuttal? Yes. Okay, all right.
Thank you.
We're almost there, everybody.
Thank you, Commission Chairman Feltner, for giving me this time to rebut. There's a lot that's been said, nothing we haven't heard before. Again, Mr. Espanet did say he went to the county. Mr. Espanet did not split the lot. Mr. Espanet did not write that narrative. It was Clayton Bennett on behalf of the contract purchaser. The 2022 application I put in for a text amendment, it was withdrawn because of Mr. Altman's Barrier Protection Act. And the consulting planners that I talked with said there's no way you'll get that through Department of Commerce because it impacts so many. This impacts one lot. This impacts only Mr. Espenet's. It's one house versus a 12,000 square foot commercial use building, which makes absolutely no sense. This property is not an area of critical concern. It has not got bugs and bunnies. It may have gopher tortoises, I don't know, but it's not a dune line and it's not a beach. Many of these people that spoke to you live in a condo to the west off Casigi Trail. They're in an RU210 zoning with a Res 1 future land use, and they're on condos. So this density is a transition from what's really there. So Res 2 does make sense, as Mr. McKnight stated. Regarding this road, A1A, it's got a 36.16% level of service. There's quite a bit of traffic that can still go on that, and it's only one house. Also, too, there are two evacuation routes. One is north and one is south. This was put in place before, I believe, the bridge was down south. At least that's what I was told when I was looking at the 92 ordinance. I want to talk about that 92 ordinance because I did pass it out. That 92 ordinance is very confusing, and I don't have any information as to exactly what happened here, but Exhibit A to Addendum Number 1 says Ordinance 93-02. All this says is the mixed use is changing to residential. It doesn't say Res 1 in here. I'm not sure where that came about, and we're trying to hunt that down. Regarding precedents, I'd like to cite from a Yale Law Journal from 2013. This is called City on Planning, and it states, the key to understanding map amendments is that they are successive changes to the map, considered one by one and limited to a specific area without any precedential value for other zoning decisions. Again, this is a zoning decision. What I cited to you earlier says that Rinker still applies to comprehensive plan amendments. Regarding Administrative Policy 3 that was cited by one of the speakers tonight, that does not apply here. That applies to a zoning, a rezoning only. Regarding the comprehensive plan glossary, I implore you to read those. You have a goal and an objective. It's more specific than a goal, identifies the steps necessary in pursuit of a goal. So if the goal is to statement is to develop growth management strategy. The objective is to limit densities within coastal high hazard. You're still doing that when you go to Res 2. So the objective is met. And then the policy is to help with the objective, but you don't need the help here because the objective is met. This bill that we keep talking about, the only thing it does here, because the guiding principles don't comply, as stated by your staff and by Mr. McKnight, is it will allow Department of Commerce to review this. Again, this is a future land use, not a zoning. This is not a variance. We're not claiming a hardship. The biggest thing I want to explain is that just because staff says so doesn't mean they're correct. I know you rely on them. They're very intelligent. They're very good. This has been a position that's been in place for a long time. Mr. Bennett nor his client wanted to fight this. We're here to fight this because we believe that they have made a mistake. Again, the binding development plan has been done before for Dunkin' Donuts, and I do want to take your attention to the last page of what I submitted to the Planning and Zoning, which I now can't find, but it is the constitutional amendment in the Florida Constitution that states staff is not entitled to deference. That changed in 2020 or 2016. It's stated on the page that I cannot find. I ask that you approve this. Department of Commerce will look at it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, before we go further, Morris, you want to clarify something for us?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a little unusual, and I'd ask the board to indulge me a little. You'll probably hear from me a little more than you usually would. Typically, we bring to you applications where, in your function as policymaker, particularly for these legislative comprehensive plan amendments, you have broad discretion to apply your wisdom to the matters before you and make a decision. Likewise, in zoning matters where it's quasi-judicial, you consider the facts and the law you apply those, and you have discretion. Here, it's staff's opinion, certainly my legal opinion, that there is no discretion, and I would like to explain why I believe that's the case. First of all, saying I have the utmost respect for Ms. Rezanka and Mr. McKnight, their professional knowledge and skill, but I do want to talk a little bit about comprehensive planning under the Florida statutes. According to Florida Statute Section 163-3177, the format of a comprehensive plan is generally provided as goals, objectives, and policies. But the stated purpose of comprehensive planning is not to compel local governments to regulate their land in a particular way, but rather to establish meaningful and predictable standards for the use and development of land and provide meaningful guidelines for the content of more detailed land development and use regulations. Objectives do typically follow from goals, and policies from objectives, but policies do not need to be narrowly written to further only the literal statement of an objective. In our case, Objective 7 states limit densities within the coastal high hazard area and direct development outside of this area. Policy 7.1 clearly and unequivocally prohibits increases in residential density designations for properties located on the barrier island between the southern boundary of Melbourne Beach and the Sebastian Inlet. That policy is not inconsistent with Objective 7. It supports Objective 7 as well as the overall goal of the comprehensive management element, which speaks to the protection of coastal resources and human life and the limitation of expenditures in areas subject to destruction by natural disasters. And if you look at all of the other policies under Objective 7, none of them are limited specifically to application in the coastal high hazard areas. They talk about things like you shouldn't place a hospital on a causeway. They talk about the CEMP, the coastal, or the emergency management plan, things like that that go beyond a narrow focus on the coastal high hazard area. Most importantly, the law affords equal dignity to policy and objectives. It doesn't say if you check the box on an objective, ignore all of the policies underneath. Rather, if you look at Florida Statutes 163-194, which is entitled The Legal Status of a Comprehensive Plan, it expressly states a development order or land development regulation shall be consistent with the comprehensive plan if the land uses, densities, or intensities and other aspects of development permitted by such order or regulation are compatible with and further the objectives, policies, land uses, and densities or intensities in the comprehensive plan, and if it meets all their other criteria. Again, doesn't say ignore the policies if you meet the objectives, but rather compels you to follow those policies in your comprehensive plan. The cases that interpret it say that a comprehensive plan is essentially a constitution for all future development within the governmental boundary. And the cases say that it is well established that a development order shall be consistent with the government body's objectives, policies, land uses, et cetera, as provided in its comprehensive plan. So I'm not in a position to advise you that you can ignore policy 7.1 simply because this property is not in the coastal high hazard area. Rather, to the contrary, I feel that you're compelled to follow policy 7.1. If I had my way, and I think if staff had theirs, we would probably not have taken the applicant's money and said this is something the board can't approve, but I think we were told in no uncertain terms that the applicant wants to go forward and possibly get a denial that could be subject to an appeal, and that we may have even been sued to require us to process the application if we turned it away. So it's here before you. Have full respect to the board, but again, I believe, this is clearly inconsistent. The request clearly constitutes an increase in residential density, can't be granted. And I do want to remind everyone that there's a supplement to the staff report that does state that, and I believe the applicant talked about it earlier, this is not an unbuildable or undevelopable lot. A professional office could be placed on the lot. Sorry for talking so much. Again, unusual, but this is an unusual circumstance.
Okay, commissioners, discussion on the item. Question, I'm sorry, Commissioner Altman, sorry.
It's just more of a clarification. I'm a little confused. I know when you look at this parcel on the tax map, it's showing it as being owned, it shows it as a condo common area, but it doesn't show the name of the applicant on the tax map. Shouldn't that be the case if it's a landowner coming for a rezoning, that the ownership should be showed on the tax map?
I have noticed that, audited Commissioner. If you search on the property appraiser by the tax account that's on the agenda report, and I'm looking at it right in front of me, the correct account does show up, and if you hit the tax bill, the owner shows as Christopher Espanet, which is the applicant, and it shows that the taxes are current, and it shows, so there's 3 tax accounts across parent parcel. There's that full one that I believe is what you're looking at. There's a tax account on the east side and a tax account on the west side.
I'm looking at it. I'm waiting on it to load. It's just odd the way it's shown on the map. I can't tell from looking at the tax. I'll probably have more questions of you about that, but I've never seen this before.
I think it may have something to do with the way it was divided as with using the condo.
All right.
When it's in condominium ownership, like if you were to look at the condominiums to the west,
right,
you'll see they're all grouped together even though the units are individually owned. So I think that's probably why the property appraiser shows it that way. But it is individually owned, and Mr. Espanet does own the 0.7 acre piece and does pay taxes on it.
Interesting. If it was rezoned here today and they built a residential home, they would still be able to file for homestead and show it designated that way? Or they need to change the tax map?
The request today is a future land use map change,
Right.
but if that were granted, there may be an issue about inconsistency with the zoning, which we'll ignore for a moment. But if they did get to a point where they could build a home on it, they could apply for homestead, just like you could with a condominium or townhome ownership.
Would they change the tax map? Or it's just odd to me. There's
You mean
an
the tax account number, sir?
The
Is
actual
that-
map, the actual tax collector's map doesn't show. When you click on the tax collector's map, you click on the details, it doesn't show the owner. It shows as part of a condo.
I mean, when they do a split or a combined, that changes tax account numbers, so that's possible that
Because
that
of
they
the
would have to do
condominium
that.
vehicle, I think it'll stay that way because it's in a condominium essentially.
Mm-hmm, okay. That's it, I understand.
Do you have other questions, sir?
No, I don't.
Not yet? Okay. Any other questions for staff?
I have.
Okay. Commissioner Adkinson?
Question, not necessarily. I'm going to make a statement if you tell me if I'm wrong. First, I would like to say thank you to everybody who came today. I know this is a unique situation. Let me also mention, I heard the word unbuildable, just to reiterate what Maura said. I heard unbuildable several times. You need to understand this is not unbuildable. Correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
This is 0.7. Res 1 indicates it has to be 1 acre to have one residence.
Correct.
We are talking about changing from R1 to R2, which means what?
It would double the residential density.
Right. Policy 7.1 of our comprehensive plan says Brevard County shall not increase residential density designations for properties located on the barrier island between southern boundary of Melbourne Beach and the Sebastian Inlet. Correct?
That is correct.
That's all I got.
All right. Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Goodson.
Then if you can't build a residential, but you can build a 12,000 square foot commercial, right? Is that what I heard? Is that correct?
You would be able to build certain types, not all commercial, but residential professional, so professional office is an example.
Okay.
Yes.
And is that 12,000 square feet?
I believe the minimum is 7,500 square feet.
Okay. Which would, does anybody have an opinion of how much that would increase the density as far as traffic?
So it very well obviously might, depending on the use. We consider residential density and commercial intensity as two separate things.
Correct.
And that's why that policy doesn't apply to the commercial aspects of it. It's only applying to the residential aspects of it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Any discussion on the item? Is there a motion on the item? Okay, Commissioner Atkinson.
I move to approve the denial of the comprehensive plan amendment from Res 1 to Res 2.
Okay, Commissioner Atkinson makes a motion for a denial.
Second.
There's a second by Commissioner Delaney. Clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Delaney?
Yes.
Vice Chair Goodson?
Yes.
Commissioner Adkinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Altman?
Yes.
Chair Feltner?
Yes. We'll show that denied. All right. Thank you, everybody. We will go on to we're going to take just 1 minute here to let the room clear out, okay? Commissioners, just 1 minute.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
All right, Commissioners, we got one card. Sandra, we got your card for, no? You gonna waive in oppose? Waive in opposition? All right. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Sandra Sullivan, I forgot about my public speaking card. I just got so
okay.
excited over that vote. Anyway, So I want to talk about the firefighters today, and I'm sure you've seen the photos online of the wonderful rally, of the tremendous amount of turnout, including elected officials that came out today in support of our firefighters. And so I want to just express a concern on a couple things. So I went up to second floor today, and there was a negotiations that the firefighters were informed about 2 days ago. Now, I've been to the meetings and recorded a lot of the negotiations, and so I know the going back and forth between the attorneys. They go, hey, are you available on such and such a day? And the other one comes back, no, but I can do Tuesday or Thursday of this dates. And then they go, well, I can't do that one, but I can do the 6th. And they come up with a date, boom. 2 days notice for negotiation. What a waste of staff. They just sat up there. There's no one else in the room. I walked in there. I'm the only person, and I sat down. What a waste of staff time. Sitting there kind of just shooting the crap, right? So why did you do that? That's the question I have. Is there going to be like, okay, you guys didn't show up to the negotiation, so now we're going to set your wages? Is there going to be some shenanigans like that? It's just a question. So a workshop, that rally was held because a workshop was canceled and to get this message out. And when that decision was made to cancel that workshop, what was said is, can't discuss negotiations. But there's documents that were shown to me that were walked or given at, allegedly, because I wasn't there, at multiple fire stations by staff of one of your offices. So, is that a problem for these negotiations that they're supposed to be confidential, but staff of a commissioner is dropping them off at a commission office? So I'll bring that up. Secondly, I want to just say my concern that I have right now is I gave this commission an attorney general legal opinion that you can put the EMS assessment below the line. You have a problem that you're not even talking about at these meetings. And that problem is legislatively, we the people passed an increase in homestead exemption. You're going to be bringing in less money. So when I bring you an AG legal opinion that you can put EMS assessment below the line, you should have embraced that. And I'm like, you didn't. So are you going to try and bust the 3% cap and take it away?
Okay, board report. Mr. County Manager and board report.
I have no report, Commissioner.
Okay, Morrison, board report.
I believe you've all heard enough from me tonight.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Fair enough. Commissioner Goodson.
None.
Commissioner Atkinson. Commissioner Delaney.
I just want to say that I hope that the intention of this negotiations that went on today, that was just talked about, is not the case. And I'm very frustrated about what happened today. I'm frustrated that our staff sat in a room for 7 hours alone, especially when I requested the emails between county manager and the attorney, Mark Sugarman, and the union lawyer. And from what I saw on the emails, it basically stated that the union lawyer said that they were not available today. And so I'm not sure why we wasted so much staff time knowing that the union couldn't be there, that the lawyer wasn't available, and I don't see how this moves us forward to a better place and fosters trust and a better relationship moving forward. And I'm heavily concerned that a commission office gave paperwork with firefighters' names on it, their rank, their time in service, their wages. We're not supposed to be doing that, and so it's very concerning. And I worry about the legal ramifications of that, especially when my workshop was shut down because of possible legal ramifications. Even though in 2021, there was a workshop where fire was talked about during the budget workshops, and those concerns were not brought up at the time. And so, frankly, I'm frustrated, and I hope that we can move through this in a better way that gets us to a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Altman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank the board for understanding me being late. It's interesting, I work at the Space Center. It now reminds me of the 60s and 70s. It's getting really crowded up there. It was bumper-to-bumper traffic from the barge canal back about a mile. I had
The
to go
cars
back.
were different then.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, they were prettier. Yeah. Right.
And we have to leave 2 hours. But that's a good thing, I guess, because
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
a lot of jobs up there.
Absolutely.
But I just apologize for that. And thanks
Yeah.
to the board and to you, Mr.
You were,
Chairman.
you were here for the main event. That's what matters.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I think we're done. I don't have a board report, so thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.